The Sabres are on a 3-game win streak, but that is not the story of Sunday afternoon's tilt against the New Jersey Devils. No response to a hit on Tage Thompson, Lindy's response, Jason Zucker's response. There's a lot of stuff to get to. Coming up on today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and thanks for making today's edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast your first listen, as we always appreciate it here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Sneaky Joe DiBiase coming to you today here on a Sunday. And the Monday edition of the show coming out a little bit early here because I'm heated. I'm heated at the end of a win. Very strange day to be following this team, to be covering this team, or to be rooting for this team. They win the game 4-3 over the New Jersey Devils. Yet another great first period. The Sabres have been one of the 3 best first period teams in the NHL all season long. And they got out ahead in this game. They almost fall apart at the end. We'll talk about the game itself. We'll talk about how they got ahead. Some good storylines to get to. Ryan McLeod, who continues to score goals since really we pointed out he went 26 games without scoring one. He's been scoring at will ever since then. So McLeod is a good story to get to. And the top line. The Sabres right now have won 3 games in a row. They are not in the race. They are not really climbing back in. Like, they'd have to do a lot more than 3 straight wins to actually be considered to be in the race. But, hey, it's looking good. It's going well. This homestand has looked good so far. So you'll take the wins where you can get them. A lot to get to, especially on that top line. Man, when Thompson, Peterka, and Kulich are really cooking right now, they look on the level that Tage, Skinner, and Tuck looked 2 years ago. So I do want to get into a lot of that today on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sneaky Joe DiBiase. If you want to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sabres, if you'd like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, which is pretty heated right now, you can hit us up. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place to sign up. And you get some injury updates in there as well, what the line combinations will look like, starting goalies. You know, we'll bring it all to you in the show. And also, like, news. Like, today we found out that Henri Jokiharju selected to Team Finland for the Four Nations tournament. Not that Jokiharju's been great. It's just Finland is pretty thin on NHL defensemen. And I guess they could have picked someone from the Liga overseas. But Jokiharju made sense. I mean, they were almost out of NHL defensemen. He's available. He'll go to Montreal and Boston to play in this tournament coming up in a short amount of time, a week or two. The story of this hockey game, the 4-3 win over the New Jersey Devils, is by far what happened in the third period at the 5:11 mark of the third period. The Sabres are up. And there is, about 15 minutes to play. Tage Thompson is back checking. He is trying to make a play on the puck. Sorry, he's not back checking. I guess he kind of is. He had lost the puck on a zone entry, and it went into kind of no man's land. There's nobody there. He turns back. He goes for the puck. Here comes Stefan Noesen, who has been known to throw some hits and even some borderline hits in this league. He's not a big guy. He's not small. He's 6'1", 205, but he throws his body around. And on this play, Tage is reaching for the puck. Noesen, it almost should have been called interference. Now, it got called for the head hit. Noesen slaps the puck over to his teammate and then pivots to take a shot at the Sabres' best player in Tage Thompson, absolutely going for contact that was completely unnecessary. He does not have to throw a hit here. He's won the puck battle. He got there first. He got it to his teammate. He didn't care. He wanted to blast Tage Thompson. He tucks his elbow in so he doesn't stick it out, but it doesn't matter. In the year 2025, you hit the guy in the head. That's a dirty hit. It's a headshot. Tage didn't have the puck when it happened. He got a match penalty for it. Absolutely deserved. It's a bad hit that has no business being in the NHL. Thompson's helmet flies off. He helicopters around. It's a pretty visual hit. It's not, Kulik gets hit a little bit later in the period, and it might have been tough to see, right? Like, it's along the boards, and it's kind of a small amount of contact. It just had to hit Kulik in the right spot. That one would be very hard to see. This one, even if you catch it out of the corner of your eye, you're not missing this. You're 6'7", one of the biggest players on the ice, is helicoptering around in the middle of the ice, and his helmet flies 5 feet off his head. You can't miss it. That hit occurs, and not a soul on the Buffalo Sabres moves a muscle to do anything about it. Nothing. And collectively, all Sabre fans had the same reaction of, wow, nobody's going to do anything about this? Really? Your star is laying on the ice without a helmet, holding his head. The linesman, who actually, Bulldog had a funny tweet about this from WGR, how the linesman acted more aggressive than any Sabre on the ice. He runs to Noesen at 1,000 miles an hour and tries to shove him away from any Sabre that might be incoming, but there was no Buffalo Sabre incoming. Nobody flinched. You've got two, not one, two 6'5" or larger defensemen that are on the ice and are contorted in a way with their bodies to where they are facing the play. Again, even if they don't directly see it, if their pupils are not lined up with the play that happened, they are facing that direction. There is no way they would not have seen something had happened, and it would not have been that hard to figure out, again, given who the linesman ran to, and given who Kulik actually went up to Noesen. Guys from your bench are screaming. I'm sure it would be very easy to find out from one of them who did it. Nobody does anything. Nobody wants to do anything, and nobody approaches, let alone drop the gloves, let alone goes after, nothing. Stefan Noesen. He gets escorted off the ice. He's out of the game. Match penalty. No one's going to answer the bell. For Tage Thompson. And there are a lot of different angles to this. It was asked, we'll get to what was said about it in the locker room from Lindy Ruff, from Jason Zucker, who's on the ice, from Mattias Samuelsson, who's on the ice. Those were the two that were out there that got asked. Kulik is out there as well. So is Owen Power. And again, nobody did a thing. And we really shouldn't be that surprised. Should we? Should we really be that surprised that no Sabre took the initiative? Didn't even look like they had the thought to do it. Nobody wanted to do anything. Why should we be surprised? This is what the Sabres have been telling us that they are for years now. Years. They have been screaming at us. This is who we are. This is who we are. We are not doing anything about that. We'll take the penalty. That's it. And to me, it is, as someone that has played hockey on of course, no level whatsoever my entire life, it is disrespectful to someone that loves the sport this much and plays it, where I can't believe it's not instinctual. I really can't. That, there's some argument going on right now on social media, and I'm participating in it a little bit about how, because Jason Zucker, the comment we'll get to about him was about, well, you want the win, right? We could make our comments about you really care about the win so that you're 11 points back instead of 12 points back in the playoff race. Like, come on, your season is over, right? Like, I get those remarks. I get those jokes. But to me, it's more about instincts. How are you not geared as a hockey player, as someone that's played this sport your entire life? When your best player gets hit like that and is laying on the ice without a helmet, holding his head, how is your instinct not to grab somebody, Anybody, even if you get the wrong guy, to react in some aggressive fashion. You didn't have it. Doesn't matter the size of the player, doesn't matter the experience level of the player, doesn't matter how experienced of a fighter the guy is. None of that matters. It should be instinctual to every hockey player that's ever played the sport that when your best player and that happens to them, you react in a different way than the way the Buffalo Sabres reacted in this game. None of them. And we could blame some more than others, right? I think rightfully so, the guy that's getting blamed the most is Mattias Samuelsson. I mean, you could look at Yuri Kulik. Kulik's facing it directly and is closer to the situation than anybody. And I'm not going to blast Yuri Kulik. He's a rookie, right? I can point out, and I also don't listen to it's a different sport. You know, like Rob Ray would have done something. Sure, yes, Rob Ray would have done something, and it is different than in Rob Ray's era, but not a valid excuse. If you hear anybody, if you're debating with your buddies or you see it on social media, like, hey, it's not the same league as it used to be. Okay, that's true. The Florida Panthers exist. Ever watch a Florida Panthers game? Ever watch when one of their guys gets hit like that, let alone one of their top players? They're all going after everybody. Matthew Tkachuk is actually, and I know he's Matthew Tkachuk, has made comments in the past when he's gone after a guy when he has said, yeah, I didn't even know who hit him. I'm not going to be on the ice and not have a response. I'm going after somebody. I'm going to grab somebody. Doesn't matter. You got to have a response. The Florida Panthers exist, and they would have never reacted like that. The New Jersey Devils, the team the Sabres played tonight, it was 2 weeks ago. Nico Hischier, their captain and one of their best players, speaking of which played the Canucks, got smoked by Matthew Tkachuk. High hit and instinctual, didn't matter. Everybody went after somebody. Not everybody on the Devils saw that hit 2 weeks ago. Go watch the YouTube video of this hit that happened a couple weeks ago. Not everybody saw the hit. Everybody got involved. Everybody grabbed a dance partner. Everybody was going to do something. The guy who went after Matthew Tkachuk is not a big guy, 6'1" defenseman. He's not a big fighter. He goes after him. Matthew Tkachuk, by the way, a lot tougher of a customer to go after than Stefan Noesen. And they did it. Didn't think about it. And if you're wondering about, maybe the score was different in that game, because that's part of the thought here. Well, the Sabres are up. They're trying to win the game. Sabres are up 4-2 with 15 minutes to go. This Hischier hit from a couple of weeks ago. It's tied 1-1 with about the same amount of time left in the third period. Okay? They didn't do the computation in their head at that moment of, oh, no, guys, we want the win here. We want the power play. We want the win. Didn't have time to think. The instinct was, one of our best players just got smoked. I'm going after him. Sometimes it annoys me that in today's NHL, there is overreaction to every hit. That every clean hit has to be met with a fight, right? Like that or something. That seems to happen a lot in today's NHL, where you can't have a big clean hit without there being a response. But this is dirty. This is a dirty hit. Tage gets hit in the head, which makes it very, very different. So if somebody brings up, it's not the same sport. The Panthers exist. The Bruins have conducted themselves this way for over a decade, and they still do, even though they're not the biggest team anymore in the NHL. All these teams do. Most of these teams do. They're going to do something in that spot. I know it's not 1996, but come on now. You got to have some sort of engagement. And we'll get to what the player said about it, and we could look at, Samuelsson again, because Samuelsson is the one. Buddy, you are 6'5". You wear an A. Your job on this team is to be one of the more physical defensemen, or if not, the number one guy for that, physical defenseman. And you're out there, and you didn't do a thing. He's the one to look at more than anybody. What I was going to say about Kulik, I never got to it, is I'm not going to blame Kulik because he's a rookie, but in 2007, Chris Neal got blasted Chris Drury, and Drew Stafford, a rookie at the time, without hesitation went after Chris Neal. Dude who was like 7-8 years older than him. No hesitation whatsoever. Stafford went after Neal. And, tell me till you're blue in the face, it's a different sport. I want someone to go after him. And when Kulik doesn't, come on, Samuelsson, come on. Power, same thing. Like, he's not physical in that way, but have some fire anywhere burning inside you. Have some fire. Get pissed off. Even if you don't know who to get pissed off against, if your captain, not your captain, but your best players laying on the ice like that, get mad. And you shouldn't have to tell the guys to do that. It should be, my whole point here is, it should be instinctual. And with this team, it's not. And I really wonder why it's not. And, you know, I don't want to take this too far. And it's an emotional day for this. It's in the moment. So maybe that's going to inevitably happen with a lot of us. I don't think it's Miller Lucic 2.0. I don't think it's that bad. Okay? Like, it's bad, and it's disheartening to see, and it's something that I think is absolutely deserving of criticism. It's not Miller Lucic 2.0. Okay? That was far worse. Everybody saw that on the ice directly. It was your goaltender on top of your best player. I mean, that one, far different. Far worse, I should say. This one, when you watch it and you see Noesen have that happen to him or do that to Tage, my takeaway and my thought that I hope is wrong, but I'm thinking about it a lot, is that's the reaction when you're not a real team. When you are not a real team. When, you know, you don't believe in this thing. And they shouldn't. Team stinks. You know, I know they won 3 in a row, but the season's gone pretty poorly. That's the response when you just don't believe in the group. You know? When you're not really connected, when you're not in it. You're not feeling like this thing's going to work, you know, you're not as together as you should be. And, you know, maybe you could say you can't blame them because everything's gone so poorly for a couple of years now for this hockey team and for this group. And maybe there isn't that bond that there would have been had they been a consistent playoff team. You know, that's where it comes down to for me. Like, if they had made the playoffs 2 years ago and then had made the playoffs again last year and a hit like that happens, maybe it's different. Because maybe there is more of a bond. Maybe there's more of a connection. Maybe there is more engagement on the overall. Maybe there's more exuberance about playing on a night-to-night basis. I don't know. Like, to be a Buffalo Sabre is more disheartening than it is for any other team in the league, I'm sure. So, is that what it is? That it's not a real team. They don't play that way. I don't know what the answer is because I am not buying that, oh, they did it because they wanted the 2 points. When we come back, what Zucker said specifically about that and what Lindy said. Lindy had a very interesting press conference about this hit and when he was asked about it, his whole demeanor. We'll get to that when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hockey right now, I had a good night on the in betting on the Sabres. I mean, if you knew their goal differential by period like I do, first periods they're great. I bet against them on the spread. I didn't want to bet against them to win, but they were minus 2.5 after the first period. And I'm like, okay, the Devils are going to get a goal or two here. Sabres play cautious in their own end in the second and third, and that went well. So if you got a gut feeling about one of these games, head over to FanDuel Sportsbook. And of course, Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sabres get the win. We will talk about the win and some of the plays we saw, some of the positive energy that happened really in the first 40 minutes, despite the fact the last 20 minutes kind of take over the storyline, and I think rightfully so. So Thompson gets hit out of the game. By the way, the injury update from Lindy is that Thompson should be okay, that he might even practice tomorrow. He got hit in the head, but he passed all the tests, so good, right? Very good sign that Thompson's going to be okay. If he had not been okay, maybe this story would be even more devastating, more maddening, I should say, for Sabre fans. So, no doubt, and not surprisingly, the players and the coaches go into postgame, And the first questions they get, which I think are 100% deserved, are about the hit and the response, not about the win. The hit and the response. So the players speak first, and you got a different sounding tone from different players. Rasmus Dahlin, he's not on the ice, but he's the captain. And I will say Dahlin, maybe more than anybody, and this is part of the reason I'm sure he was named captain, is that he is this way. Dahlin, more than anybody, is someone that will stick up for teammates. Last year, against the Washington Capitals, late in the season, similar circumstances, they're out of the playoff race. The season's been terrible. Late, TJ Oshie takes a run at Tage Thompson. Same player. A dirty run at the end of the game, completely unnecessary. What does Dahlin do? Dahlin drops TJ Oshie and starts a scrum. Okay? And now he's the captain. That guy, when asked about the hit in postgame, says that as the captain, about the lack of response, that it cannot happen again. It cannot happen again. And then he said about the hit, you have to have respect to players. I don't think it's a part of hockey when talking about the hit. So Dahlin kind of puts his weight behind, yeah, no, we should have done more. And that can't happen again. So I liked hearing that. The guy with the C. I liked hearing that. And he's not on the ice, so I don't want to blast him too much. Mattias Samuelsson gets asked about, he's out there, right? And he wears an A. And he says he takes some responsibility for the lack of response, says it's BS about the hit. I do think, myself included, we needed to do something about it. There was a lot of confusion about it. So you kind of have two things there where Samuelsson, and he looked very down about it. I mean, for a guy after a win, you know, maybe he does regret not doing anything because he's going to hear it. He's going to hear it from fans, maybe more than anybody. And maybe he knows that. And maybe he knows I should have done more. It's how he talked, at least. Samuelsson, and I'm not, whatever. Samuelsson takes some responsibility for that. He did add in the thing, though, about confusion about it. And that's kind of where his point, I think, came, which is that I don't think we really knew what happened. And my follow-up to that is that shouldn't matter. You should still do something. But, okay, Samuelsson says there was confusion about it. That's why he didn't directly respond to it. Okay. He also says, by the way, Lindy didn't address the hit on the bench. Maybe he did after the game, but he didn't while the game was ongoing. That's what Samuelsson had to say. Then Jason Zucker talks. He sounded very different than everybody else. Zucker pretty strongly defends not responding. He's out there. Maybe he's defending it stronger because maybe he did know what happened. Maybe he knew more than the guys behind him, Power and Samuelsson. Maybe Zucker knew. Zucker says he didn't see it. He says, quote, I never saw it. I was on the ice. The puck went over to Hamilton. The puck was already gone and moving. I never saw the play. It was really hard to tell. Then he got asked about the response and there not being one. He said, quote, we won. Says you're not going to do something that might cost them the game. Says that if he goes and drops the gloves, I'll get a 2, a 5, and a game, and possibly cost us the win. That is the comment that's been debated a little bit more. Because all due respect to Jason Zucker, he's been an awesome Sabre this year, and he's a veteran player in the league. He's been on winning organizations, right? So he would know, but I could not disagree with him more. It's not about the penalty there. It's not about where you are in the standings or the win versus the loss. It's instinct. It should be instinct on what to do. It's in the moment. What are you going to do? I don't care what the score is, right? Like, who has time when you're on the ice playing hockey, when your best player is laying on the ice? Who has time to, sit there with your arms crossed and go, oh, well, let me see the scoreboard, hold on. We're up 2 and there's 14 minutes to go. And let's see, are they going to call a 5-minute penalty here? Like, okay, 5 minutes. All right, I'm not going to do anything. No one's taking 30 seconds to figure that all out, right? It's bam, the hit happened. He's laying on the ice. What are you going to do? In that moment, what are you going to do? So I don't buy Jason Zucker. I don't buy Jason Zucker's comments. I respect him, and I respect, the career he's had. And I know he is not somebody you would expect to drop the gloves in this situation, but I do not agree with his comment personally. I don't. Now, Lindy talks. Lindy kind of was tough to figure out, I thought, in postgame. And we'll see what he sounds like as the days progress. Me and Jeremy White will speak to him on Tuesday morning on WGR, and I can guarantee you that this will come up. Lindy sounded irritated or fired up, maybe is a better way to put it, throughout his entire press conference. And that made me think, just speculating, oh, Lindy's mad. Lindy's mad they didn't do anything. And I don't even want to rule out that that's the case. He kind of said a couple of different things. And in both directions. On one hand, Lindy got posed the question about those on the outside criticizing the lack of response from the team. And Lindy throws a couple of curse words in with, you can figure out what they are, BS, on to the next question. Swears a couple times, mad about the idea that anybody would be criticized. Like, oh, okay, there's Lindy defending his guys. There is Lindy saying, I'm not hearing any of this about you're going to blast my players about not responding. So on one hand, you had that. On the other hand, Lindy talks about how he had a couple of guys on the bench that did want to do something, that did want to, answer the bell in the next shift or two, and kind of made it sound like, yeah, we didn't really want that. We're going to get the power play. We want to win this game. But then a little bit of a peek into classic Lindy. The guy that was screaming at the refs and ordered his players in 2007 to go after Chris Neil after his best player, or one of his best players that night, was laying on the ice for getting hit in the head, right? And had just had a rookie stand up for him. He ordered the code red, right? Andrew Peters, Adam Mayer, Patrick Coletta, go get him. Go after him, start a brawl. And that happened. You got a little bit of a view into classic Lindy because remember, in brawl night against Ottawa, and I don't think this warranted that level of brawl, but that night, the brawl wasn't going after Chris Neil. Chris Neil was sitting in the penalty box. You couldn't go after him. He was already in there. What did the Sabres do? We're going after your guys, your best players. So what does Lindy say when he gets asked? This is after, by the way, saying BS, next question. He doesn't want to hear about his team not responding. Lindy gets asked about Stefan Noesen getting ejected from the game. And are you frustrated that you couldn't directly respond to him? And here's your classic Lindy quote, well, you pick another guy. Says it twice. Go grab another guy, he says. And that's what I want to hear from Lindy. So I don't really know fully how he feels about it because he kind of defended his players while also saying he kind of says, I would have liked them to grab somebody else. So I don't know. We'll see what Lindy sounds like. I can't get a great gauge on how he feels about it, but my guess is, given his tone and how fired up he was, is that he's going to defend his players in the public, but I really wonder if behind closed doors he is mad at them. He can't believe they didn't do anything. I don't know that, though. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely off base. We'll see if we get any more signs of that from Lindy going forward. So that's a lot of your post-game banter about this hit. So we'll see if we get a suspension also. Noesen, I would expect, is going to get a call from the Department of Player Safety. I don't know if he has a prior history, actually. He probably, I think, will get a couple of games, 2-3 games. I don't think you're going to see a massive suspension, but I would expect that he's going to get something. And looking very quickly, I don't believe from a quick Google search that he has ever been suspended. Yeah, it doesn't look like he's ever been suspended. So not a repeat offender. All right, when we come back, let's get to the win itself, how it looked, and some really positive things that we did see from this game when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Back here on Locked On Sabres, the Sabres get the win 4-3, overshadowed by the hit on Tage Thompson and the lack of response, but they did get the win. It was a really, really fun first period. 1:00 Sunday, maybe you missed the Bills and maybe you wanted something. Maybe you wanted the tailgate and you went to the arena down at 1:00 and hey, it went well. So it went well, and it really was mostly the first period. The Sabres were fantastic in the first period, and not a surprise, right? We've been bringing up the stats to you that they've been one of the best first period teams all year long, one of the best goal differentials in hockey. but then they are like the worst in the second and the third period. And this game was very much the same, right? They fly out to a 3-0 first period lead. They outshot New Jersey in the first period 12-8. They expected goals, they lost it, so that's kind of interesting, but that was almost the same. They had a great first period. They capitalized on their chances. They were all over them. And a lot of it was the top line. The top line right now, assuming Thompson is going to continue to play, has been so good. So good. Thompson on the wing with Peterka and then Kulik sandwiched between them has been a lethal duo for about a week now, and I would not break that up. I mean, we saw, and Thompson was really the driver of a lot of it. What's interesting is Kulik is playing center, but Thompson's still really driving the line. And you saw that a couple of times tonight where he's got the puck, he's driving down the middle of the ice where you'd often see the center, and he's either scoring, right, in the first period. His goal comes from picking up a rebound that Owen Power flies in. Good rush by him. Owen Power, by the way, how many shots did he end up with in the game? I know he had 7 it's up at some point in the third period. Power ended the game with 9 shots on goal. Incredible. So Power was shooting, and he didn't score, but one of those shots directly led to the Thompson goal because Power flies into the middle, takes the shot. Here comes Tage following up on the rebound. He picks it up in center ice, middle slot between the face-off circles, and he puts it between the wickets on, at that point, it would have been Jake Allen before Nicholas Dawes came in. So there's a goal by Thompson. Then he makes 2 plays around the goalie, driving down the middle, both great setups. First period to JJ Peterka. Peterka does a good job because Thompson does put it between his feet a little bit, but Peterka does a great job kicking it up to his stick and then burying it. And then on the power play, a little bit later on in the game, Thompson, very similar pass, makes everybody think he's going to shoot, and he shoots, slides it over to Jason Zucker. He's got the whole net, taps it in. 2 primary assists from Tage Thompson, both skilled plays to go along with his goal. All night, all day, I am just watching him in this game and going, I can't believe Team USA is not bringing him to the Four Nations tournament. It's unbelievable. It really is as if Bill Guerin, the Minnesota Wild GM, who is in charge of putting this Team USA together, does not watch the league. I still cannot believe he put a completely shot Vinny Trocheck, who is not good defensively anymore, on that team over Tage Thompson. It's incredible to me, but it just is a sign is that Guerin doesn't care about it, or not enough to like spend a day-to-day process on it. He's doing it as a part-time thing. He's the Wild GM, part-time USA GM, whatever. He's not watching Thompson on a night-to-night basis, and he's clearly not, because this dude should be on Team USA. He's playing lights out. Tage Thompson has been lights out for a while here. I mean, all season he's been scoring, but we are starting to see the playmaking kick back into gear. Maybe that's been a lot of his teammates as well, with Kulik and Peterka starting to bury him. But he is now up to 48 points in 47 games. He is back above the point per game threshold in the league, and he's at 26 goals in 47 games, which, if I do the math on that over an 82 game sample size, he is on a 47 goal pace. So on the mark to tie his career high. So he's playing fantastic. The other guy that I wanted to speak on in a positive manner in this game is Ryan McLeod. Ryan McLeod, super fast, scores a shorthanded goal in this game. Nice move, by the way. Forehand, backhand, slides it between the legs of Jake Allen. Nice little move. Since we pointed out that Ryan McLeod had gone 26 games without scoring a goal, Ryan McLeod has now scored 6 goals in 7 games. Awesome, right? Awesome job. 6 goals in 8 games, excuse me, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 games. So yeah, 6 goals in 8 games. He is up to 12 on the year, which ties his career high already. He had 12 last year in 81 games for Edmonton. He's got 12 games in 49 games this year for the Sabres. So offensively, that's going pretty well. I've been impressed by McLeod all year. It's kind of amazing that it hasn't made more of an impact on the standings. There have been so many other issues. That's why. But man, it's gone great. He's been great defensively. He's a good penalty killer, and you wanted him to chip in the odd goal. I mean, he's doing more than that. He's gonna get to 20 goals this year. Or at least it'd be surprising, I think, if he didn't get to 20 goals this year. So good on McLeod. He continues to score, and he continues to look good. I mean, right now, he's their second best center, right? Would anybody dispute that? I mean, I think it's fair to say he's been better than Cousins this year. So I would say it, at least right now. All right. Let me know your response. Are we making too much of this response to the Tage hit? I don't feel like that's been the reaction from Sabre fans, but we'll see as everybody kind of settles down. Everyone's hot right now. We'll see everyone cools off to see what kind of the response is. That'll do for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We did not bring up Elias Pettersson today. JT Miller gets traded from Vancouver to the New York Rangers this week. We will speak on if that kills the Pettersson trade idea. I think there are arguments both sides of that. So that will be coming up this week on the show. We will talk about the salary cap increases in future seasons and more reaction to this Sabres win streak, as well as this hit on Tage Thompson, whether Noesen gets suspended, if there's any more fallout from the no reaction. A lot of that coming up this week on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you want to check out some Bills stuff heading into the offseason, Joe Marino's got you covered. It's the nitty-gritty season for Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steal and Flip got you covered. Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Check out all our great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. That'll do it for us today here on Locked On Sabres. We'll talk to you tomorrow here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.